everybody. Thank you all for coming to my talk. The dangers of public Wi-Fi. Quick table of contents for what we'll be looking at today. Read through that. Okay. Before we dive into this fascinating topic, I'll tell you a little about myself. My name is Leonardo, and I'm a high school senior who's fascinated with embedded software and cybersecurity. When I was first presented with the opportunity to do a talk, a couple ideas entered my head. I was thinking, what about a Wi-Fi deauthor? Or maybe off-grid communications? Or phishing via captive portal? What if I told you there was a device that could do all of the above, and it was smaller than this Hot Wheels car? Let me introduce you to the ESP32. ESP32 is a low-cost microcontroller that has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities. Firmware for the ESP32 can be written in a variety of different languages, including code blocks if you're not so good with syntax. Due to the simplicity and capabilities of the device, the sky is truly the limit with what you can make. All right, let me get a show of hands. Who here has connected to a public Wi-Fi network? Okay, almost everybody. It means you're all at risk. Most of you, as you've seen, are potential victims for this type of attack. It's called captive portal phishing. Not this kind of phishing. Phishing is when someone pretends to be something they're not to gain your trust and phish information out of you. According to the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report in 2023, 36% of all data breaches in the US are caused by phishing attacks. To put that into perspective, that is nearly $80 billion a year is lost to phishing attacks, a number which is growing, and that's roughly 20 U-Haul trucks full of $100 bills, as you can see in the picture there. My goal with this talk is to educate others on the ease and accessibility, as well as the affordability of deploying a phishing network like this, and even more importantly, highlight how we can avoid becoming victims ourselves, and how we can eventually shut down these operations. The talk will be split up into three main parts. First being Fisher, which will cover the more attack side of it, where I develop a firmware for the ESP32. Second will be Triangle Gator, where I go on the more defensive side, and it's an application I wrote, which will locate the device or estimate a location of the device within a building. The third being reverse engineering and seeing what information we can get from the device's binary file. Showcase. Let's see what this looks like. So as you can see here, phishing networks often disguise themselves as something enticing and or deceiving. Once you connect the network, you're prompted with a login page of a seemingly legit website. This can be changed to whatever you want and can have many different capabilities. The threat actor wants you to trust this and give up any information you will. Usually captive portals look the same on every single device that can connect to the internet. It's because they're a feature, not a vulnerability. The admin control panel is accessed through the same login page that the users log in to have their data logged. The admin panel boasts many features, including the ability to view, download, and edit changes to the device and logs that are saved. You can also monitor the battery life. The device itself has an LCD screen that can log information for testing, but I did implement a headless feature because if you were a threat actor, it would be kind of useless to have a device that just beeps a bunch of colors at you, right? If you want to hide it away, you want it to be completely dark. So when you turn the headless flag on, all of the lights on the device go off. The screen turns off. Now for the fun part. I'm going to let you guys try it. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go over here. See if I can. Powered on now. Here. Log on myself. It's hard to see from over here. Is that warped? Perfect, thank you. There you go. We got some people logging in now. Beautiful.
Jeff, that's me.
As we can see, you have a battery button up there. It doesn't automatically update. That's because, in my opinion, for this sort of thing, you want to have it as manual as possible, because if it automatically updated and sent WebSocket, like transmissions to the server, then you'd be wasting battery life, right? You want to have it as minimal as possible. That way, every little bit of battery is saved for when you're actually using it. You can go ahead and download the whole table if you want to a text file. And change the SSID. As well as shut down the entire device. There you go. Let's get into how I did this. I used the ESP async web server library to host this Wi-Fi soft access point, and used redirects that I found online, or captive portals, to prompt the user with the captive portal upon connecting. A custom login page with full HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is then served to the captive portal. Upon logging in, the user has all their information logged and saved on the device. And when the admin logs in to their admin panel, it is then shot up WebSockets to the admin panel on the user's device. And the login details that are stored will continue to be updated in real time without having to reload the page. That's a really simplified version of how it works. If you want to take a really close look, the code is all publicly available on GitHub. You guys can tell me all about how bad it is. Now, a fake Google login page may fool some people and may have some valuable information to a threat actor, but real dangers lie in other examples. I'll give you guys a moment to think of what kind of HTML pages could be really dangerous in the bad situations.
Banking logins.
What's that?
Banking site.
Banking logins? Okay. Anyone? Yeah. Corporate login page. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anyone else?
Any place you put a man in the middle attack.
There you go. Also true. Here's what I thought of. University login pages. We have so many universities in this city, and a lot of them don't really have like a security to get into a lot of their buildings, right? There could be someone who just has this $15 device and all the hardware on it, walks in, hides it under a sink with a magnet, right? And they could be grabbing student information or class information, which could be rather personal or sensitive. Next up, like you said, business login pages. Also really dangerous. Some businesses aren't that locked down, or nearby places, say a coffee shop beside a business, right? Could also be a place where you could hide it, I guess. This is dangerous because it could log sensitive company information, possibly leak admin panels, and or customer information. Finally, this one I think is the scummiest of them all. Cheap unlimited Wi-Fi. Imagine you're at an airport and you just landed in Canada. Cheap unlimited Wi-Fi. You see it, you think, okay, I need to text some people from back home or something. And you type in your information, pay the $1 charge or $5 charge, whatever it was, and that's it. They have all of your credit card information. They can continue to use your card until you stop it. For the next part of the talk, I will shift from the more attacker side of it into the defender side of it when I look at how we can locate this device within a building. Introducing Triangle Gator. Triangle Gator is a REST application I created to help estimate the physical location of a Wi-Fi network. This is Gnarly the Gator, the mascot and app icon for Triangle Gator. As you can tell, I had a lot of fun with this project. Okay, as you may have seen, I used Rust for this project. And you may be asking me, why Rust? Well, there's many reasons why someone may want to use Rust for an application. A couple of those may be memory safety, high performance, or concurrency, all of which were not the reasons I decided to use Rust. I decided to use Rust because my friend Nate bet that I could do it in Rust. So I was very keen to prove him wrong, and prove him wrong I did. When you launch Triangle Gator, you'll be prompted to connect to one of the Wi-Fi networks. As you can see, there are multiple there, because where I was testing it, there are repeaters. If you need a password, it'll let you type one in as well. Okay, once you connect to the network, you'll see a triangle on the screen and 3 points you can click on. Once connected, any of the points will be able to be tested with adjustable sample scale, which is how many times they are tested, and adjustable sample length, which is how long between each test. Once the point has been tested, the average RSSI, or received signal strength indicator, will be displayed when you hover on the point. How this would actually look in a real-life situation is if you say near 3 points where you could connect to the network for sure, right? But you don't know where the network is. You would take those 3 points, say here, and you test the signal from here. You walk over here, so it's the left bound, right? You test the signal over here. And finally go to the last one in the middle, at the top, you test it right here. Based on those 3 signal strength indicators that are averaged out, you'll then be able to calculate the position estimated of where the device would be within the triangle, or whatever shape you choose to drag it to. Once all 3 points have been tested, a calculate option will be available with a path loss exponent option. This is an interesting option. We'll get into it a little more later, but the pure and simple of it is it can be adjusted based on how densely populated the area is or how noisy the area is with signal. As soon as you click calculate, Triangle Gator will work hard at mathematically calculating where the point will lie within the triangle, and where the network is. Now, the name Triangle Gator originally stemmed from triangulation. But It turns out that's not even what I was having to use. I had to use something called trilateration, because the difference between triangulation and trilateration is triangulation works with angles. We don't know the angles. We know a measurable unit, RSSI, received signal strength, which can be taken and estimated based on another mathematical principle. So how we would look at the RSSI is we would take the transmit power, the TX power, and the RSSI, the signal level, and we would average them out numerous times, right? That's to get the most accuracy we can from our tests. Because if you just take one sample, it could be high, it could be low. If you take 5 or 10 or 20 samples over, say, 20 seconds, it's a much more average number. All right, now for the fun part. I'm not going to dive too deep into the math, because I don't want you all falling asleep in your seats, but we'll get on a base level. There's something called a path loss model, or path loss equation, right? You can see that up there. And once a point has been tested, it is ran through this path loss equation to predict the signal lost when traveling through densely populated areas or noisy areas. As you can see here is a chart I pulled off Wikipedia for path loss equations. And you can see this number here is your path loss exponent. It usually goes up the more densely packed the area is. Like an office with a hard partition is all the way up to 3. I do, however, have it starting at 2, starting at 1, all the way up to 5. If you're in, like, I don't know, somewhere really backed. Now, this is messy, but to put it simply, we're using linear least squares regression, which is a math equation that I don't even fully understand, but I implemented to estimate where a point is when it is between 3 other points. Usually in math, this is used when you have a scatter plot, like 20 points say, and you want to find a line in between them all. But it can be used at 3 points to find a point in between the 3 points. This equation will yield us a point which you can plot on the screen for the end user. Hopefully it's pretty accurate. Now for use cases. An example use case I thought of for this would obviously be someone, a company, or individual who wants to locate a malicious network within a building or area. There might be others, I don't know, that's just what I coded it for because it makes a good point for this talk. Yet again, very rough simplification. If you want to take a closer look at all the code, also on GitHub, the math behind it is a little shoddy, and I could have done better with the actual calculation at the end. Linear least squares regression is a great equation, but there are better suited ones. For example, particle filtering would have been perfect for this project, but I was already running out of time, and I did not feel like dabbling in an entirely new equation. Now the question is, what do you do with the device once you find it? Is it just a tiny little paperweight you put on your desk? No. We can reverse engineer it. I use ESB tool by Espressif, which is who makes the ESB32, to get information about the device itself and to extract the binary off of the device. I also use bytecode viewer to see this basic view inside the binary, and Ghidra to examine a little further. I will mention I am not pro at reverse engineering by any stretch of the imagination. Using ESB tool, we can find information about the device using the first command. You can see down here, somewhere. Yeah, it is an 8 megabyte device. Now this is important because that's the flash memory. We need to know this to use the second command, which dumps the flash memory into a file. Second command we have right there, read flash 0, that's the starting bound. 8, the hex for 8 megabytes, is the second bound. And you put the name of the file, extracted.net. That's just a binary extension, so we can view the file. Okay, taking a quick peek at the binary. First thing that popped out to me is a lot of it is in ASCII or plain text. not the code itself, but the JavaScript on the web pages. And in fact, the entire web pages. Moving to Ghidra, you can analyze the binary itself using the extensa extension for the language. And you can get a further look at the functions and fields of the binary. I personally, like I said, I'm not too advanced in reverse engineering, so I wasn't able to glean that much from that. But I did get to see the defined strings, and I noticed that you can export them right to a file. So you can actually take the entire web page for the login and the admin panel, just take it straight out, put it into a file, which is useful for a point I'll bring up. Interesting fact, while I was extracting the bin file, or examining the bin file, I noticed something really interesting. The flash memory still preserved strings and source code from previous flashes I had done months prior. I'm not sure why this is. Some of you may know, but I don't know. And it's really interesting because if a threat actor was unaware of this and was actively using the device for testing, we could possibly look at this previously flashed information and glean something useful from it. So what can we do with this information? Well, you guys might have some ideas. Let me hear from you what you would do in this situation.
You're just going to steal an idea? No. We're testing this at home. You might be able to identify their home Wi-Fi.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Find them.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
With the ESP32, you can make it so that it's an access point and a station at the same time. So when you log into the portal, you can actually pass your creds to the actual portal and possibly do some more that way. So
Yeah,
it'd be kind of
that's a good
fun
one.
to play around with.
Yeah. You?
From just like a less technical but still more mitigation, like say if somebody plugged one of these in at an Access Nova Scotia and was, then you'd be able to know, what private information was giving up and be able to kind of mitigate it against any privacy breaches you're looking at there.
Yeah.
Just knowing what it does is important.
Yeah, knowing what it does, how it acts is also, like you said, very important. Yeah.
You can also see if there's any like C2 in the command and control in the binary.
Yeah, that's true. I'll take one more. Yep.
Depending on how it's compiled, you might be able to identify their computer as well.
There you go. That's also a good one. All right, I kind of have a lame pick, but here's what I would do. So we can just rip both the HTML pages and the JavaScript behind them right off of the device. The first thing that popped in my head, well, since we could take them off, why don't we just create our own binary? Take the device, have a file set up, put them on, and then it acts very similarly. We code it very similarly to act almost the same. But when the user, who's the admin, logs into the admin panel, we could then take information off the device, like what device is connecting, the MAC address, and alert people who are maybe waiting on standby in the local area to see who it is, because it would have to be connected to from locally. Almost like a honeypot. Okay, brings us to the conclusion. Technology like this is super fun and super awesome. And it's super fun to mess around with. But in the hands of wrong people, it can be very, very dangerous. The best way to stay safe from threats like these is to stay extremely vigilant and aware when using public Wi-Fi. Or just don't use them at all. I'd like to thank all of you for listening to my talk, and I'd like to give special thanks to Daryl and the whole Atlantic Security Conference team for making this happen. All right, Q&A. Also, I have business cards if anyone wants to come up and stay in touch.
I'm mad because you did math.
The math?
That's the math.
I wish I didn't have to, man.
But it's awesome.
Did you have a job lined up after high school?
I do not have have any job lined up. I'm still doing co-ops, unfortunately.
How do we invest in whatever giant corporation you're going to make?
I appreciate that. Yep.
Would you ever make it remotely accessible?
You could. I don't have plans to. I thought about maybe, last time I did this talk, Gurjeet had a fabulous idea, which was taking more information and actually connecting to a network and then watching their information that they send and retrieve from the web, which would be cool too. I guess that would be packet logging almost, right? That would be really interesting. That's what I would do if I were to continue this project, but I'm not sure that I will. I have
That's not my fault.
I had many other things in mind. But yes, you definitely could.
Because then you could just stick it on a card.
Correct. Yep.
Do we need to collectively say anything to Nate, given that you not only accomplished the task, but then came and gave a talk to a room full of security professionals?
Yeah, you should definitely heckle him for sure. He'll be seeing this video, so he'll see. Tell him.
Suck it, Nate!
Anything else?
Are you filtering special access on password?
Say what?
Are you filtering input of password?
No, actually, that's a good point.
So we can attack it, right?
Yeah, you could. I didn't really make it too security advanced because I figured it's a disposable attack, right? There's no information or shouldn't be any information about the threat actor on there, theoretically. And the username and password reflect that. They're stored in plain text. So, yeah.
What did you find most challenging with this project for yourself?
Most challenging? Gurjeet knows it. The math. The math, man. Beat my ass. Well, the particle filtering part, I tried to implement it, and then I realized how big of an overtaking that would be to rewrite all of the math behind it when I only had 7 days left before the talk. So I decided not to do that and just show it as is. Yep.
Yeah, so your little device there, has it actually got enough power in it to do packet filtering or
To what?
to do packet filtering or disseminating the packets going through it if it's doing like a man in the middle attack?
You mean processing power?
Yeah.
Yes, it would. Yeah. They've actually become pretty advanced. In prior years, they were a little less advanced, but they've upgraded the memory, like the flash memory, they've upgraded the processing power, and they still continue to make upgrades. The company is impressive.
And that little device, what's the battery life on that?
The battery life? Well, the one I bought here is a pre-built kit, because I was short on time. But you can actually attach any size battery you want.
But when it's that small, it's like that pre-built one, what do they give
This
you
one,
for
the
that?
battery life on this, I'd say if I had the screen off, probably about 12 hours.
Okay, so you can leave it there for a good amount of time.
Yeah, it's relatively conservative with how it uses its battery, and that is a tiny battery, very tiny battery. You could hook up one that's flatter, and you could just stick up under a sink or a trash can somewhere, and it could last days, right?
You can plug them in as well, right? USB.
Yes, you can plug them in USB-C if you wanted to go that route. You could definitely, yeah.
What sort of range do you get off that thing? Broadcast?
That's the really surprising part, okay? This has no long, large antenna, right? But I tested it in my home, and it went through 5 sets of walls up on the 3rd floor from the basement. So it's actually got really good range for having no antenna.
Wow.
So if that puts that in perspective, when you put an antenna on it, probably really good range. Yeah?
So you could tail somebody pretty effectively in a car now.
Yes, you could. You like cars. Yes, you definitely could. Yeah, that's true. If you did do that, you could hide under a fender and have, theoretically. Yep.
I just wanted to add too, with those you can actually mesh them together. So if you had somebody that you were interested in, you could put them into different areas and you could track them probably that way as well.
True.
They're really,
True.
really cool.
A really interesting protocol is LoRa.
Yeah.
That's what I plan on doing my Yeah.
Yeah.
My next talk, I plan on doing LoRa, something with that. And yeah, you can do, it's basically low frequency, longish range radio frequencies.
I have quite a few modules like that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Interesting. Very cool stuff. I'm really excited to get working with LoRa. Anyone else? Yep.
Can you specify frequency or is it fixed frequency?
With LoRa, you're only allowed to have certain frequencies
Okay.
because it is kind of like a hobby radio kind of thing,
Yeah.
where they have allocated frequencies that you can use and that you definitely cannot use. Yep.
With this device, can you select channel or it's automatic
For
Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi, it would be automatic. Yeah. Not automatic, like a preset channel. Yeah.
So you can preset it by yourself.
I believe it would just be like hardware bound because they're not too, focused on that. I think it's just standard 2.4 or something like that.
You're recording this, are you gonna put it on the internet or anything?
I'm going to put it on YouTube. Yes. Look good on a resume, hopefully. Anyone else? Last call. Yep.
What school do you go to?
What school? ATLSECCON in Spryfield. Thank you.